Welcome to this week's edition of Powerful Conversations. I am super excited to bring my friend Hilary on. We are new friends, but I think we have a lot of similarities. And she is just so down to earth and so wonderful. And I'm super excited to have her on here. I think she's coming on. Yeah. Okay. Hi, you did it.
Hi, I did it. I It's so nice to see you.
It's really good to see you.
How
How
are
are
you
you
doing?
doing?
Well, I know. How are you doing, Houston?
I've had better weeks. I'll send you a
Yeah.
text after, but yeah, I've had better weeks. How are you doing?
I've got had my own challenges. Last week, I'll send you a text after
I
this.
would love to hear it. Yeah, okay, well, we'll take our personal stuff off of here, but we'll be a little personal while we're on
I
here.
love it.
So this is my friend Hilary Phillips. We got introduced like what, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And
We
we did a like little coffee Zoom date and we just fell in love. And I was like, oh my gosh, as I do these powerful conversations and just talking about people, what do you look like when you feel the most powerful, or what are you doing versus when you don't? I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what we perceive as successful people, that they're somehow like not like the rest of us. And it's just so it's what I love about your work is it's really, we're just shoulder to shoulder. Like there is no title, there is no this or that. It's just like, hey, let's come to the table. Let's get in the right room, as your brand
Yes.
is, and let's figure it
Yes.
out. So tell everyone a little bit about you and what you do first.
And I want to go back to what you said, like hierarchy. Like I believe in general, there's no hierarchy, right? Like so even with my child, I believe any relationship is a partnership, right? Because there's no better, there's no worse. Like we're all doing the best we can. And so I love that. Yeah. And so the work I do with women in the right room is exactly that. It's a partnership um in a guide, like helping them see in themselves what is sometimes hard. It's a reflection, it's a mirror, it's showing back to them what they see. And so the right room was created um, because I had this vision of creating a platform for women to help them navigate, I say transitions, but it's another word is challenges, because we all have them and we all go through different challenges and transitions in our life, whether it's becoming a mother, our kids go to college, moving from corporate to entrepreneurship, going through a divorce, in my case, getting sober, like all of these things. And so I wanted to create a platform for women where they could be seen and show up exactly as they are, and create a safe space for them to be who they are and then become even better in whatever their definition of better might be. Um, and so we do that in a variety of ways. I know, similar to you, it's like one-on-one coaching. We have group cohorts. We're about to launch some self-study courses because I really wanted to meet women where they are, whether that means, financially or time constraints, or just kind of dipping their toe in to see what it's like.
Yeah,
Because, you and I have been in this space for a while, and I love, I've been reading self-help books for
forever.
forever.
Yeah.
Um, and so I love being able to share that knowledge with other women.
Uh, as you're talking, I love this. I have a question for you. Have you always been this vulnerable? Have you always been this
Mhm.
like open? Because I just feel like I had like this download, like, no, because I certainly
Yeah.
haven't. Like, I was like, get away from me. But I was just wondering, as you're talking and creating these spaces for women to be seen, and
Yeah.
you have to really be comfortable with yourself and with emotions and with vulnerability to hold space like that. So tell me, like, have you always been that way? And if not, when did that start happening for you?
No, and so the family I grew up in, and that's how my mom and dad grew up too. It's that you don't talk about things, right? Because if you don't talk about them, they just kind of go away. Or if you acknowledge them, it could be seen as weakness. I was an athlete, and so I was always driven to kind of put the best foot forward. And um, but I got sober in 2007, and for a long time I kept that really quiet. I didn't talk about it. because I felt like it was a weakness and there's still a little bit of shame around it. And so in 2022, I had, you describe a download. I was like, well, if I feel shame about this disease, addiction, what about other women who are either trying to get sober or 1 week sober or a day sober or a year sober?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I telling them? And it's not embarrassing and it's not shameful. And so once I started opening up about that, just being vulnerable about who I was, it opened up this comfort level in who I am. But that came from a lot of work too, and knowing that like I'm okay as I am, and we're not perfect. And the more I put on this idea of, or this look of perfection, the less real it is. And what I realized was, by not being real and not being vulnerable, then the people I was surrounding myself with are the same, and it can be a really it wasn't the space I wanted to be in. And so I started to share about sobriety and recovery really openly. And then now it's like, it's easier just to share the real stuff that's going on. And that's okay. And I think that goes back to that hierarchy too, that I'm no better or no less than anybody else. And I want to give that to other people, to say like, it's okay to be messy. And I love this idea of like, the desire for perfection is just the unwillingness to sit with our imperfections. And so once I acknowledge like, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. And a woman that I was working with once said to me, and she's like, what does perfection look like for you? And I was like, oh, well, that's easy. It's this, 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 and this. And it wasn't about how I felt I wanted to be better. It was about what I felt other people wanted to see.
Oh,
and
interesting.
so, yeah. So once that recognition of, it's not about me, it's about the way I want to present to the world, I'm like, that doesn't feel authentic and real either. And so, and it's funny, because now it's just the way I am. Like, I'm pretty open, and I'm like, yeah, what do you want to know? Like, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, that's so vulnerable. And I was like, oh, and I just kind of forget that it can take a lot of courage to be vulnerable and raw.
Yeah. I'm not going to cry. Like,
I might
jump to
cry.
it.
I'll cry with you.
We're just like crying on the live. You know, I say to people, it's easy to be vulnerable when you're not going through something vulnerable. Because I think
it's true.
It's true. So true. Because it's like, I think, I don't know why I'm crying. Well, I have a good idea, but whatever. We'll just keep it moving.
Do you want to share?
No.
Okay.
Okay. What is happening? Pull it together. Okay.
Well,
let's start.
This is vulnerability, right?
This is vulnerability.
Yeah. Showing up as you are. I
very recently went through a breakup, and I ended it originally, and then we came back together, and it was the most vulnerable and honest I'd ever been, ever. And that was met with judgment on the way out. And I'm just listening to you talk about, like, you know, and I think about people like you and I, that we're just special. There's just special people here that are meant to hold space and be the example of authenticity and vulnerability. But that's not always, when it's not met, when you're, you know, it's just not always, it just doesn't, yeah, that's where I'm at.
So Wayne Dyer said, like, the hardest journey we'll ever take is one from the head to the heart. It's just 13 inches, right? And so I think, so what I'm hearing, it says, like, in your head, like, we know, like, that judgment is not about you, it's about that other person. And so, you know, that, but then taking that journey from, like, knowing it to feeling it is, that's where the work is, and that's where the process is, and that's where the practice is, because it doesn't happen overnight, even for people like us that are so
like,
deep
know
in the
all
work and like
stuff. I think too, just being so open, this is the first time that just my mom's death has made me really like, it just put me in a different world. And last year going through divorce, just all the things that you know, we've gone through together, and, or not together, but similar things, not, you know, lost a parent, but divorce and all that. And I think when you start to live even closer to your truth, but things are messy, it's a lot to hold. And so I think that, you know, just being in that, I think that's why when I was listening to you say, you know, like, it's okay to be messy, and it's like, and not perfect, and be in a space where you receive judgment for that, and also go, that doesn't mean that I'm not any less worthy. You know, we're not pedestaling anyone around here.
Yeah. And what you said too, and I love that my dad's death hit me to the core. Someone just shared, same, like I lost my dad in 2022, and at 15 years sober, it was the first time I was like, I just want to drink right now because I had so much grief that I didn't know how to hold it.
Yeah.
And so for me, those practices came in really strongly because, and community. And so what you're saying too, it's like community for me is one of the most important things,
Hmm.
whether it's a group of friends or a group community and, a coaching cohort or
Yeah.
an interest group or something, because you're surrounding
Mhm.
yourself with people that have those same core values
Yeah.
as you and I do. And so, and then it's not the judgment, it's a judgment-free zone of people that are loving and accepting us as we are, showing up in any iteration because they
Yeah.
have done the work themselves,
Yeah.
and that judgment comes from fear and scarcity. And
Do you
um,
ever go, because you're in different circles, do you ever go into circles where you're like, ooh, these people are not in touch? You know what I mean? And like, what is your mindset in that? Because I can be rock solid at times, and other times, it's like, woo, this is feeling tricky. And so I'm curious, because you run in some predominant circles. How do you, when you're in that, do you desire to be a part of that? Do you desire, you know what I mean? Like, tell me what that looks like for you.
I did, especially when I was drinking. And then even a couple of years ago, I wanted to be someone I wasn't because I thought it would make me feel a certain way.
Mm,
If I'm in that group or if I get this, then I'm going to feel a certain way. And what I realized was that comes from, right? And it sounds so cliche, but that comes from the inside. And once I found that confidence and in myself,
yeah.
then those things don't matter. And then I'm also comfortable walking into any situation because I'm grounded in who I am. And that's not to say that I don't get imposter syndrome from time to time, or I don't feel discomfort because I do feel less than, or um, not as good as, right? And I think most people have that I'm not good enough feeling in some way or another,
Yeah.
like the not enoughness. And that still like pops up from time to time. But then going back into my community or tapping in, I say my board of directors or my super tight knit close
Yeah.
group of friends.
But just like,
Um,
but
yeah, yes, no matter what. And they're like beautiful reflections and reminders of who we are at our core.
yeah.
And, um, my partner is one of the best examples of that. Like,
Mm,
it's like if you could see yourself through my eyes, and it's that constant reminder of self doubt's going to show up,
mm.
but these people are here to remind you of your value and your worth and your goodness. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that's so important.
Super important. And I think too, like, it's so funny, but so I have finger tattoos. I don't know if you
Love
knew this.
them.
And I like love, but I didn't ever think about it till I moved back here. And then like, it's interesting how I'm received. And I'm like, it's just artwork. Like, we can't all be the same. And like, Houston is like very like, can be, and it's almost, it's just like this one little thing where I can feel people lean into me or push away just off of like that. And it's almost like I have like a face tattoo. It's just an interesting thing. And also, I think this individuality, like I just embody me. And so people naturally either lean into me or lean away from me. Like, it's always been that way since I was little,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I think my journey has always been about owning that that's okay, opposed to being like, when I have enough of this, they'll like me. And just realizing like that's such like that, I don't even want that. I've been a part of that. And that doesn't feel good. That's not
Mm-mm.
real. That's not genuine. That's not authentic. It just looks really good on the outside, you know?
And that's the thing, and that's one of the things I've learned through sobriety is that so often it's like we compare our insides to other people's outsides, and so I
Yeah.
look at someone, I'm like, oh, they have everything together, or they, live in a beautiful home, or they have,
They have
you
it
know,
all,
X, Y, Z, they
like,
have it all, but
yeah.
you have no idea what's going on because of that facade and just how they feel on the inside. And so it's funny, even showing up to this. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm speaking this afternoon, and we're in our hotel room, and I was like, I don't have makeup on. I don't like, I should be like, because Sophie's always so gorgeous and pulled
I
together and look at me.
literally
And I was like,
put a top bun
uh,
on 10 minutes before the call. Like I was like slumming it, but keep going.
I have like workout clothes on. Like we just got
Oh my
coffee from
gosh, I love it.
downstairs and like
Yeah.
did some content stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to show up as I am because it's about a conversation and it's about connecting with someone, not
Yeah.
about how I show up, you know, and I mean, I'm not in my
Mm,
pajamas, um, but again, like all of this, and I think you'd love to hear your insight on this, but it is about a practice too. Like
yeah.
for so long, I wanted to say, give me a deadline on when I'm going to arrive
Mm,
in X or when I'm going to be Y. And so when I was younger, I was like, well, when I have a house and when I have married and when I have a child and when I have a job, then I'm going to be happy. And I had all those things. And I
yeah.
never felt more alone and unhappy. Not my child. I adore my child. That's not, you know what I mean? But I thought those things were going to fill me up and make me feel a certain way. And they didn't. And it wasn't until, um, yeah, you start doing work. And it is an everyday practice,
It's
just like sobriety or anything else. Some
mm,
days I wake up and I'm like, I feel great. I feel amazing. This is going to be the best day ever. And some days, I mean, even like today, where I'm like, wake up with worries on my mind, or wake up with this, or I have to do this, or I start stressing or going down that
mhm.
thing. And I think I believe in this too. Well, I know you do. The breath, like just coming back to the present moment, being mindful, focusing on breath. Like there's such simple tools. But even
Mm,
on the days when I, again, it goes from the head to the heart, even on the days when I know this,
yeah.
I still self-sabotage through,
Mhm.
I want to sit in the chaos and I want to sit on the pity patty and I want to be feel sorry for myself because that feels comfortable. But what I've come to learn is that like we have the power of
Yeah.
choice, right? And the choice is I get to choose if I want to sit in that or I get to choose whether or not I want to
Do something
change the way
about
I
it. Yeah.
feel. Yes. And
Yeah.
that comes back to me.
Mhm.
And that comes back to you. And that comes back to anybody listening. Like our superpower is our choice to make a change, a
Mhm.
decision, an action.
Yeah.
And that's empowering.
Totally. And it's, the first time I broke up with this gentleman, I was like, I'm going to do 75-day hard. And I had just gone through so much. I like say the last 18 months had been like the meat grinder, and I felt so good because it was like, I was pouring into my heart and soul. It was like, I just didn't even allow any of those old narratives to come and get me because it was like, oh, I've got to go for my walk. I've got to go work out. I'm going to put,
Yes.
and then I think coming back and it is a practice. And what I think too is it's like for me is it's like practicing honesty in all of my affairs. Like this is my heart and
Yes.
not this is who I think you want me to be.
Yes. Yes.
And, and
And
then
it's so
we're
true. Like
go ahead.
taking care of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Like, because we're not responsible for the external chaos. We're not responsible for people, places, things, or anything else, but I'm responsible for my internal calm and peace.
Mhm.
And when my inside comes from a place of calm, then I have the confidence to know that then I can handle anything because I'm so grounded in that,
Say-
like who I am and how I'm going to show up and
Mhm.
authenticity and honesty.
Yeah. And I just think like when I'm there, and for the most part, compared to, I don't want to compare, but I would say for the most part, you would probably agree with this with yourself. I'm there more than I'm not. Like I can be, I'm like, okay, like
Yes.
I'm doing okay. It's like, I think my finger tattoos are incredible. Thank you very much. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I think being an individual, but there's it's when we get out of that those core wounds that just come and grab us and just making a choice. Like we had the hurricane and the breakup and I just had like a week and I just said, Sophie Jones, you have an opportunity here. You know what I mean? You can write about it, you can journal about it. Like this person was like, I don't want to accommodate your AA meetings. I don't want to live around that lifestyle. Just things that were like, you know, when I think back, it's like we all want people, and this is where I think we fall short. And this is where I help clients. It was like interesting. It was like, oh, I'm reliving a pattern with this individual. Is
Yeah.
it's like we all want people. It's like totally, you know what I mean? I
Yep.
could see it from when I was like, that's why I ended it the first time. It was like, but we go back, matters of the heart. But it's like we want people that are in our corner 100%.
Yes.
And in order to have people in our corner 100%, we have to be choosing from us owning us 100%. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, and so, and if we're not, then like the people that we let in our corner, I think that's so true too. When people go through transitions, probably like your clients, it's like, who's in your corner? Like, do we need to
Yes.
clean that out a little bit? Do we need to like, and are you, do you have your own back? Because if you don't, it's like growing and going, and especially helping like highly successful people. It's like
Mm.
usually their corner is empty or it's full of those patterns and places and people because they haven't even come home to themselves to be authentic and honest, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you just said too, like it's turning obstacles into opportunity, right? And it
Yeah.
that comes back to the way we look at things, because the way that we see our world is a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves, right? And so if I can look at obstacles as opportunities for growth, I mean, like we've touched on this. So my divorce was exceptionally challenging and continues to show up as a challenge in my life. And how I've reframed that is I say, he's my greatest teacher because
Yeah.
this person continues to show me areas inside of myself that still need work. Like maybe
Yeah.
it's compassion, empathy, better boundaries,
Hmm.
you know,
Better self-worth.
better self-worth, and saying like, okay, you can be you and I can be me, and you can continue to show up with me, but I can have better boundaries around it, and
Yeah.
that it's the responsibility of me to take care of how I feel, not at the
Hmm.
expense of somebody else, but to guard my heart and to guard my values and to guard my, how I show up in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And we need more women to know that. You know, like I really think it's like, especially with our culture of be a good wife, be a good business owner, be a good
So
mom, be a good
started.
everything. It's like, and then have no, like, have no issues like that you're willing to talk about. It's
Yeah.
just like this whole thing. And in reality, it's like it's okay because there's all this talk around like don't be guarded. And it's like, well, there's a difference between being self-protection, like and keeping yourself from others and being cautious and guarded because you are precious, and like people only get certain parts of you and like until that you can see that they're able to really meet you because they've met themselves. Like that quote, like people can only meet you as far as they've met themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like that this week I was like, girlfriend, that like you knew that from a mile away, and you liked the
Mm-hmm.
shiny package. And I think women, especially, is it's like we're being called to meet ourselves more deeply. And so it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to be guarded. It's okay to say no. It's okay to like teaching people to get back into their body, understand, you were on that masterclass, your blind spots, work on things that are going to help you versus how do I need to work? Like, what can I do to help you versus what can I do to help me so that I can like move through this so then I can
Yeah.
help you,
Yeah. Well, there's this great book, and I've shared it, Women That Run with the
Uh-huh.
Wolves. Um, and I think there's also this idea like cultural, societal, familial, institutional, religious expectations of women that are completely unrealistic. Because if women show up any way other than how people think they should, then we're called names, right? So
Yeah.
if we like food, if we like sex, if we like money, any of those things, we're told we're too much.
Yeah.
You're too much, this, or you like money, that's gauche, that's a man's thing, or you like sex, you're a ex, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Like you can't do those things. So you sit there, and Women That Run with the Wolves talks about this, like just being this beautiful, intuitive person that we are.
Yeah.
And if you look at like, fairy tales, have you read this book?
I listened to it like a decade ago.
Oh my gosh. And it talks about that, like, even as women are portrayed in fairy tales or the Bible, like we're portrayed as the evil one, we're
Yeah.
portrayed as the instigator. And it's like that alone, like the messaging around that is so dangerous for women, and it doesn't allow us
Yeah.
to be who we are. And I think I shared this with you, but like, there's this messaging that like, well, now divorces are on the rise and women are and blah 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 and all this stuff, and it's like we weren't allowed to even have a bank account or get our own car 50 years ago, so we didn't have a choice, and now we
Yeah.
have choices. And I love the women that show up and choose themselves, right? Because
Mhm.
then that is what makes us a better partner, a better business person, a better
Yeah.
parent, right? Is when we choose ourselves, not when we um when we self-sabotage, or
Or
when we
put on the
don't listen
mask or
or put on
placate
the mask.
people. Yeah.
No, that doesn't help us showing up as a better version of ourselves, but being able to fully um, show up as we are and authentically, that is what helps us be better women. That's what shows up as a better partner, because then we are who we are and we are loved and appreciated for that version, not the expectation of somebody
Well,
else.
and in reality, it's like when I'm that person or you're that person, or when I see other people in that, I'm
Yeah.
always like, we're always fascinated by those people. We're always like, oh my God, like, who are you, you know? And then you're like, well, if you knew the journey, like,
Oh my gosh,
you
if you
know,
knew the
and then to
journey.
just go,
Yeah.
yeah, and to go in places where people, their mask is their, you know, it's their everything. It's
That's
their,
their safe space. Their safe space is their mask
yeah.
instead of their safe space being within. And someone said to me once, she said to her daughter, and I thought it was the most beautiful and powerful message. She said, don't ever put the mask on because it may take you 20 years to take it off.
Amen.
You know, and now you look back at, I'm older than you, but I am now at 46 relearning patterns from my childhood because I'm willing to show up, and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that they're there, accept that they're there, and then take actions to change them. And that comes back to that choice as a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Because it's my choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And having the ability and awareness to really own every aspect of ourselves, you know, it's like I was like crying to my dad a few days ago. Okay, we're not going to cry. And I was just like, you know, I wish I would have gone the normal route, you know, like not built all these real estate businesses on the back end of being trafficked by a boyfriend, not dated all these scary cartel, powerful people, you know what I mean? Like not been like an alcoholic. And like, I wish I just would have been like, I went to University of Utah and I majored in marketing and I da 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 da, you know, because it's like, when you get around people and you've had layers and depths and stories, like those people that are like, I only have 3 chapters, like, and my dad was just like, Sophie, that you wouldn't be you. And it's like, that's the choice too, is you have to own all those chapters, you know?
Now I'm going to cry with you. Yeah. Yeah. Because there are times, same, it's like I didn't choose to be an alcoholic at 3. Like, why? And what the powering thing came for me too is when I stopped asking why and started asking how.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter why, but the how of how I'm going to be better, how I'm going to
Yeah.
show up, how I'm going to evolve, how I'm going to, present in this world, like that. Um, but I feel that, and there's every once in a while you get that little like, why aren't things different? Why aren't things easy?
Yeah.
Why
Right.
can't this? And it's like, you know what? Because that's not the path I chose. I chose to show up as a strong woman to help other women, and this is what I see in you too, to help other women, guide these women on the path. That's
Yeah.
why, and
And
that's why the
stop
community is so
looking
important.
and
And
like for empty, like I like to go to empty wells that look really shiny and think I'm gonna get, you know, think I'm gonna, that have like droplets of water. And it's like, and it, you know, there's a little more water in each well I go to, but it's like, until I can fully, you know, I think I'm just on this journey. It's like, I've just been saying, like, God and I are just going to walk it out the last 6 months of this year. We just have to, you know? And I can feel so deeply that it's like I'm being called into like a deeper chapter than I ever have to serve. And it's like, if you are put here, not everyone's put here to be of service. Like we all can be of service, but not
yeah,
everyone is put here, you know, that has that calling of like, I'm willing, like I've told clients, like I will walk through the fire with you. I'm comfortable there, you know?
yeah,
And it's like, we need more people that are like, I don't catch on fire in your fire. And I'm going to show you how we put your fire out so that you can have X, Y, and Z. And there's so many people on fire these days, and especially with social media, that it's like the more that people can show up in their truth and the more that I can go, oh, that's a familiar pattern. I'm trying to like go into what I wanted as normal. And then all those people don't receive me well because they're like, ugh, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I'm in the wrong room, you
yeah.
know, as you will. It's like, shit, you know, and just learning that over and over.
And I think part of the beauty is something I heard you just sharing too, is that like we're comfortable in the chaos because that's how, that's what we're used to, whether it's an addict or a
Yeah.
relationship or any of those things. But we've also walked out of the chaos and
Mhm.
found comfort. Um, And so we know how to, like you said, walk into the fire with these women and help them out because we've walked through it ourselves, because we've gone through the process, because we have the personal stories and the experience,
Yeah.
that's painful. And so we don't, it's not that we just understand, it's that we empathize. I know what you're
Yeah.
going through, and I can be here with you, and I can also show you how to walk
Mhm.
out, you know?
And we might have to do it a few times. And I think, the more that, and I think you would probably agree to this, the more joy that I felt and the more peace that I have found and the less that I have lived in that fire, I am so grateful, because when it comes or when I'm in the heat, I'm like, oh, I'm headed back towards a familiar fire. I have do not disturb on. Anyways, and I don't think that that's what people realize is like there's peace and there's so much power in peace, and you find your purpose in your internal peace, and you can accomplish huge things. Like, not from, it's like I've seen people, and you probably the same. It's like I've accomplished a lot
Yeah.
from running from who I didn't want to be, versus when you find out who you are, you own that, and there's so much power in that, because then you're like in creation versus running to try to escape, no matter what your success looks like.
Yeah. You find that flow,
Yeah.
which is so good.
Okay. Well, we've done our 30 minutes, but we could talk for hours. We could
I
literally
could talk for you hours. I do want to point out that the first conversation we had, we also showed up in the same shirt. So
yeah,
it was like
we were
destined.
like, who wears the red striped shirt? We do. We're in love. Yeah, totally. Okay, so I have
100%.
one last question, because this series is called Powerful Conversations. When you don't feel powerful, you've made a lot of, you've said it's a practice. So when you're not feeling your most powerful, what is your practice to get back into your power?
Mm. Um, so I do a lot of nervous system regulation work because I notice when I'm not powerful, it's when I'm super dysregulated and I'm stuck in my head. And so it
Mm-hmm.
goes back to that, from the head to the heart. And so what I do is try to, a practice that I do and that I share with a lot of my women is hand on my heart. This is abbreviated version, deep breaths, focus on the sensation in the body and try to shift out of the mind. And that is the biggest thing I can do, because I can then hold space for other people. I can hold space for my child if he's dysregulated. Um, but that is a huge shift, because once I feel comfortable in my body and comfortable in my, skin, then I feel more powerful. I also do a lot of like inner child. So I close my eyes and I see little Hilary and I give her a hug and I say, I have you. I got you. We
Yeah.
got this, as the protector. And it's a routine, like you're describing 75 hearts,
Yeah.
like just getting into, like moving my body,
Mm-hmm.
shutting down the negative looping. um, those are things that always help when I show up for myself. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most succinct way to say it. When I give myself what I need:
Yeah.
a workout, a nap, a cry, a check-in,
All of it
all
within an
of it,
hour. Kidding.
sometimes quicker. I mean, so it's like, um, but I think, to your point, where I feel powerful is when I feel authentic. When I'm authentic is when I feel the most powerful,
Yeah.
and being able to accept that. And it's a practice.
It's a practice. Okay,
Mm.
tell everybody where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yep, to find me on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
at hilaryphelps.com with one L. We have a lot of options to work with women because, like I said from the beginning, I want to meet women where they are, whether it's time constraints, financial constraints, um, scheduling, any of that. And so we do, yeah, one-on-one. We're just literally about to launch an intensive hybrid one-on-one today. We have some group coaching or group courses, self-study guides that are coming out. We have free resources. So, but on the website, probably where you can find the most information.
And that link is in your bio on your Instagram.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Well, I
I
thank you.
adore
And
you.
you just like shoot me a little text. We'll be in touch. It's always so good to connect with you. And thanks for the cry and the conversation.
My friend. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.